Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of the BrundleCast being hosted by my good friend Doooovid. Today we're very pleased to welcome John David Ebert, author of Hypermodernity and the End of the World. He's going to be joined by the author of the preface, Michael Aaron Commons, not sure exactly how to pronounce that. They are running a couple minutes behind. We're having some technical issues, but I want to thank Doooovid for hosting this program. Doooovid, you've read this book 2 times. What's your initial take?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's kind of my speed because they're looking at modern issues and they're trying to take the long arc of historical forces, going back to ancient times and specifically to post-World War I, post-World War II, if people are familiar with modernism, postmodernism, and hypermodernity. So, relatively to squeeze in thousands of years of historical forces into a little more than 100 pages is quite a feat, but it's pretty interesting in that they tie in modern art and technology and the rise of Trump, so there should be a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, great. Yeah, for those that don't know, John David Ebert has been on YouTube at least for probably a decade, close to it. He's done series on Heidegger, series on Oswald Spengler. The first time I ever saw him was probably 4 years ago, looking for information about Oswald Spengler and the decline of the West. He was one of the very few people at the time that had done an in-depth analysis of his ideas.
I was thinking of getting those books. I got Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. And yeah. There's a guy who appears in my he's in my Discord. He watches my content. He calls himself Oswald Spengler, and I thought about getting his books, but I just have so much stuff I'm behind in my reading. But I did have a chance to watch Ebert's some of the stuff on deconstructionism and Spengler, and it's an interesting take on I would call a more spiritual approach, a rational, but it has kind of like these concept of historical forces, but in some sense historical forces could be considered maybe even spiritual forces that are driving progress towards certain conclusions.
Yeah, it's interesting because he does. I really like Ebert in that he weaves a lot of different. You mentioned like the spiritual factor. He brings a spiritual factor. I think his background is very much as an art critic or an art historian. He's not a right winger, but is very interested in philosophers like Heidegger, Spengler, etc. I know he did a series recently with Shruti, some sort of Indian subcontinent guru / medium or something, and they went and together they interviewed some of the great historical figures. Like, I think they even talked to Oswald Spengler allegedly through her. So
it's interesting. Hypermodern. I asked him if either of these gentlemen play chess, but I'm a player of what's called hypermodern chess, which generally the advent of chess, the basic rules, strategy, like play for the center, try to control the center, and through control of the center, you control more space, and then after World War II, they called it the hypermodern versions, where people started playing on the flanks as opposed to playing directly for the center. So it's interesting that hypermodern also is a style of chess, and I'm if anyone follows my chess on YouTube, I play hypermodern style when I have the black pieces.
Interesting. So is the idea that strategy was not present in chess before World War II?
Yeah, people had played similar moves, but it didn't arise as like a school of strategy. The mainline school of the world chess champions, the authors, was control the center, control as much space as possible, and it was considered just bad play to play on the flanks because you're giving up control of the center. But now there's many top players who will openly give over control of the center in order to have a kind of flank control, and hopefully they'll be able
to,
like
a feigned retreat, like you tactical retreat in order to surround their flanks, envelop them.
Yeah, so if either one of our chess players would be interesting to hear that. So I guess if they're piling in, did you want to talk about? I assume you heard Charles Moscowitz stream with me on what is Jewish privilege. God
that was wild. That was wild. So for people who don't know, Doooovid has been doing this series with Charles Moscowitz on Charles's channel, and Charles is a very interesting guy. He's done many series with E. Michael Jones. Is very interested in the Jewish question. I would say he's a Zionist Jew. Doooovid, is that correct?
Yeah, kind of like a modern Orthodox, kind of Luke Fordian type Jew. You hide in public. Don't discuss in public your Judaism, but ethnically or in synagogue, very strong in his Jewish practice, and probably like mainstream. It's interesting. I think his father probably changed his name, so he's a normal conservative talk show host in Boston. He said he even used to talk to Noam Chomsky regularly until the left and right stopped talking with each other so much. And he has his Jewish show under his historical name, Moskowitz. So he's got, one of those real dual identities where he has a different name when he preaches conservatism from when he talks Judaism.
Right, absolutely. So, so Doooovid did a show and they talked about Jewish privilege. And I think, Doooovid, you've made this point a couple different places. You made it on your own channel, this idea that perhaps was it in the context of Epstein on his show where you said, Jeffrey Epstein's crimes are only possible in the context of the Jewish community, and sort of implied in that is I guess what I would phrase is the wagon circling, ethnocentric wagon circling that the Jewish community engages in to protect its own from law, outside law enforcement.
Yeah, I put two elements. One, the fact that just Jewish nature to protect our own and to try to make sure a fellow Jew doesn't end up in prison, even if one's guilty. And even according to when I first came on Luke Ford and you hit me, God forbid, with all like the child molestation, I was saying even if the person's guilty, you really shouldn't try to get the person put into a secular prison. And then also built upon the Jewish infrastructure of all our institutions, like federations and organizations like the ADL, but other organizations and business networks that someone like Epstein would have had the advantage to build himself up and have national connections and different type structures. So I don't think you have a guy like Epstein who could, God forbid, have perpetrated these crimes or got away with it without the infrastructure that the Jewish community provides. And I don't, God forbid, mean to implicate the Jewish community in any way, but there's certain elements of the Jewish community in our infrastructure and our institutions that make, Epstein, God forbid, a unique type criminal that you really only see among the Jewish people.
Well, so let me ask you, do you think it was that position that you took that got the strike, or just the topic generally, the idea of Jewish privilege?
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned that I have no idea, and he had more like a different view on Jewish privilege and leftism, and because he's a right-wing conservative, and he's very against the institutional leftist Judaism and how the majority of our organizations push for leftist causes. He also directly hit the ADL with the Leo Frank case, and he took as opposed to me, where so there's some evidence, or I'd read the Nation of Islam book. He kind of went straight out, and he thought that, God forbid, Leo Frank had been guilty of that crime. I have no idea. He's got strikes and videos removed in the past. He seems pretty cautious. So I think you just see that YouTube is cracking down. No one could really be safe. Luke Ford had his videos taken down. Halsey has issues. I'm more centrist. He's more right wing. So that's what he put. Kind of like Dennis Prager, that they just want to limit right wing voices. So I don't know. That's why I'm very careful. I would recommend people being careful. Thank God I haven't had to ban him or hit me yet, and I'm going to try to avoid that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just having this conversation on Claire Caw's channel, that there are, a channel like Moscowitz, hundreds of subscribers, your channel, hundreds of subscribers. My channel, a little over 1,000, has had videos taken down. Luke Ford has had videos taken down. But a channel like, for instance, No More News. Adam Green, who was, had you on, I think was a gracious host, and you all had a great conversation. Has tens of thousands of subscribers, talks about Jews constantly in a negative light. And I'm not saying, I find it interesting that our little channels would get struck down for less. I don't find it inflammatory, but less egregious violations of YouTube's stated policies than these other channels. And it makes you wonder, how does a channel of that size stay up? And I'm not suggesting that Adam Green is a nefarious actor, but I wonder if YouTube is interested in keeping certain hubs active in order to monitor, what they view as their enemies.
Well, one thing, because Charles directly attacked the ADL, and it could be he used certain buzzwords that triggered the algorithm. So Adam Green is very cordial, polite, careful to use PG language. So there could be a factor in just how you say it, like JF is very careful about, and how you say things, and even Doowoodism in the third person, that there's a certain aspect to talking in the third person that is less of a hate speech or less of a trigger. So there's certain ways of phrasing things. My mother's an attorney, and I assume you almost went to law school, and so there is an intelligence in how you go about phrasing things or not saying certain buzzwords. And I also watched the Google hearing this week with Dennis Prager, and they're saying like the 10 Commandments, and you can't have the God forbid thou shalt not murder, because that word triggered off the algorithms and at least made it to a certain viewing, because that makes an adult content, just to have that thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, because those words are triggering and may not be comfortable for a children's audience. I'm not sure if you watched the Google executive.
I didn't. Do you want to? Yeah, I didn't have a chance to watch that, but it's interesting because I think it's true what you say and how you say it can have a role, though. It strikes me that I would be surprised if Charles Moscowitz would say something more negative or abrasive about the Jewish community than Adam Green. Right.
Checking right now, is it likely that someone is paying to promote Richard Spencer's Twitters? Because I'm getting recommended, and now they're recommending to me Richard Spencer's tweets, and usually I get Trump or major names, and I think when it's recommended for you, that means someone paid to promote it.
Maybe CNN's paying for it. Who knows? It's interesting. Speaking of, it's actually a segue to another topic we wanted to talk about today. Was CNN recently had Richard Spencer on their channel to react to Donald Trump's ongoing feud with the Squad, which is Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the black lady from Massachusetts, and Alexandria of Color.
Rashida Tlaib, who is briefly on my YouTube channel in real life.
Is she actually your representative?
No, she's Deshaun's representative. I live in a different area, so my representative is Brenda Lawrence.
So what do you think about the ongoing feud? They're clearly or at least Ilhan Omar, for instance.
I agree with Richard Spencer's analysis on JF that your general Democrat has no problem with these women, and they're probably going to be promoted to be the spokespeople for the Democratic Party, which you may or may not. Certainly, anyone who knows about the electoral analysis, the Democrats have a huge structural advantage in the elections. There's many millions, maybe even more than 10 million more registered Democrats than Republican, and even discounting states like California, even in the electoral college states, just all the people registered Democrat, voted Democrat versus the Republican, the Democrats would have a blowout and likely win the Senate and everything. And so you have to have the pulse on what does the average Democrat, are they really opposed or in support, and saying, are these people actually rising through the Democratic ranks, where your average Democrat says, we want voices like hers. We're tired of these, old apologists like Biden and Nancy Pelosi. And I'd say it's more on that end where your average Democrat is actually probably more excited about this squad than your old school Democrats.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm not sure I totally buy that, because my understanding is that Ilhan Omar has a 9% favorability election amongst the general population, which would mean, like, even if 0% of Republicans hate her, I mean, what, 20% of Democrats like her?
I have to look into her polling, but I mean, she's likely to be in the situation where she could probably be Congresswoman till she dies, like a lot of the people in those districts where she just gets a niche. She becomes extremely popular in her district, and they just keep on putting her there until she dies, unless she runs for center, kind of like John Conyers was in Detroit, or multiple people like John Lewis, or the different names of the people that represent the different districts. And I think that people want a diverse voice. They want these, people want to say, I don't mind Muslims, I don't mind Islamic people, I support a multicultural America, and I would rather have Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib speak for me than Nancy Pelosi. So, I mean, you might have that little divide within the Democratic Party, but I would venture to say that no, the squad is probably the future of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think it's possible. But so a couple things. So one, I want to respond to Lockheed in the chat. Says, why are people always quoting national numbers? All that matters is her home district. Yes, that matters for her ability to get elected to Congress. The reason her national numbers matter is that if she is the face of the Democrat Party, that is bad in a national election like the presidency. The impression that gives, in some ways, tactically, it would make a lot of sense for Trump to force the Democratic candidates to like basically pledge allegiance to Ilhan Omar and her statements. Ilhan Omar is somebody who has come here as a refugee, the son or the daughter of a communist commissar in Somalia, trashes our country, its institutions, and its history as hateful and racist. And a country that brought her in here. She's also trashed Israel. I don't care about Israel trashing, but a lot of people do. A lot of the same people that Doovovid points out. Yes, a lot of white people, Middle America, Iowa voters. They like Israel. There's a lot of Christian Zionists. Bashing amongst moderates and Republicans. Bashing Israel is a negative. And she's tied to that. So, and the fact is, dude, I mean, at least let's just take Trump within his supporters. They started chanting, send her back. I mean, the people don't like her.
It's going to come down to those debates that I had with Norvin in balkanization, and saying it's a divided America. And the Democrats certainly have a structural advantage in the electorate, and there is that strong element of people that will chant that want to build the wall. But you see Trump for 3 years now has been struck down in the courts, and even the Republicans that are pushing away, and the Republican Party, that the elements of the Republican Party that even want to say, yes, this is a nation of immigrants. So even though you might have 20-30% of America that agrees and send her back, that division runs deep within the Republican Party, whether we are a nation of immigrants or not.
Well, I think that conservative whites, look, this is how I was brought up. I was very open to basically somebody, a black, Hispanic, whatever, comes here or comes out of poverty and sort of basically adopts white bourgeois culture and behavioral norms, right? It's like, man, like that feels like, makes you feel, I know the feeling of it feeling good, that conservative feeling, as they say, of just wanting to whitewash these people into majority culture and assimilate them. And that's really what people say. It's like, look, I'm not racist. Like if if my neighbor is a black guy and he mows his lawn every week and there's no problems and he's nice, he comes to the barbecue and he talks like me and he doesn't do slang and do drugs, like by all means, we can participate as co-equals in our civic life. But when someone comes here and their foreignness is quite on display, particularly in the way that they speak, the way that they treat America, they're hostile to it, that they want to change it when they haven't even been here their entire lives. That is really offensive to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at the numbers and the polling data and say, yeah, it's offensive to a lot of people, but to enough people that if Trump makes that a major issue, that he'll win the election, unlikely. And, Trump is looking extremely weak. He could be beat by possibly any of the Democratic people that get the nomination. It'll be a certain issue to solidify his base, but it'll cause fracture within the Republican Party. It could be, people like the Mormons, Mitt Romney, and a whole series of people of different Catholics or whatever reason, base of the Republican Party will not be too excited to get President Trump reelected and might prefer a Democratic, be it Warren, Sanders, Biden, any of the Democratic candidates, relatively, if they get the nominee, has a pretty good chance of winning.
I got to say,
the structural advantage that the Democratic Party has.
I think there's a reason that Joe Biden leads in the polls, and that white males have they probably, if you combine, I'd have to look at it, but if you were to combine the white males in particular, probably if you threw Warren in there, I mean, they're the majority of what voters are looking for. I think if they run some progressive race baiting, angry minority, there's no chance. They may have the demographic destiny on our current trajectory, but as of right now, they don't. And, I think that the Democrats could win if Joe Biden somehow could show up and not F up, so to speak. But if they make themselves the party of anti-Americanism with these, vibrant token box checkers, I'm not sure they have a chance. So, I appreciate Trump's strategy here. Now, what's interesting, is obviously we saw the chant at the rally, I think 2 nights ago. And then yesterday, he came out and I guess did a tepid disavowal of the crowd's chanting, which is honestly off brand for Donald Trump, where he's always the don't apologize approach. What do you think about that, Doovid?
Well, we went over the numbers, and my claim when we first started talking was that Jared Kushner and Bannon Breitbart largely created the alt-right in order to get Trump in office. Based on his analytics, that Jared Kushner had bought an analytical company, and they paid Cambridge Analytica, and so we're both numbers guys, and maybe we could have a different stream coming up where we'll actually analyze the polling data, the demographics, and the numbers of what it takes to win an election, and see. Okay, you could say how you feel, but these things are pretty well studied. That we know from polling data. Relatively how many Americans feel like these different ways and how strong of a issue that is for voting, and that will be able to map out the path to the White House, and saying like, okay, the people who watch your show or these different shows on the internet might very strongly feel that way, and but that doesn't matter when it comes down to elections. It's going to be a popularity contest. It's going to be more than 50% winner takes all, and the demographics are, so to say, destiny. And if you have a pulse on America that is incorrect, you're just assuming that majority of America feels this way, even though the polling data doesn't seem to indicate that.
Yeah, dude, I just posted a link in the Hangouts for Stephen James in the chat has shared with us breaking news that Iran claims to have seized British oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. UK government urgently seeking information after the Stena Impero veered into Iranian waters.
Yeah, any of these type things also will likely. I don't think there's anything on the international scene that could make Trump look good. Relatively, he might get a little boost or something like that. Somehow if like President Trump like creates peace with Iran, which is basically impossible. So I would have to say that almost anything on the international scene that happens is likely to destroy Trump, not benefit him. Like, saying war, and you could even look like Iran, like the Iran hostage in '79 with Carter and Reagan or something like that, where Iran might even be able to slip in and do something that would tilt the balance towards the Democrats, or make America feel like they don't feel safe with Trump at the helm. I mean, it's a very difficult issue, and I discussed with Deshaun Markwell on the show the reparations, which is a pretty major issue. When you would probably just say like that's ridiculous, like almost no Republican or basically no Republican is going to go with reparations, but at the same time, if almost all the Democratic candidates are basically coming out in support of it, it's going to become the issues that me and you have been debating for over a year now. It's multiculturalism, immigration, balkanization, and you're saying now it's happening. And obviously me and you are in different parts of America, and from where I am in Metro Detroit, your viewpoint is basically not viable because just the demographics where I live in, as where the demographics where you live in, my viewpoint is basically going viable.
I think it's interesting. I think you're right that any kind of conflict in the Middle East is going to have impacts on the election. I was just having this conversation yesterday, though, that
none of them. I don't see any scenario that makes Trump look good. I mean, can you think of one scenario in the Middle East that Trump comes out a winner? I mean, unless somehow like Palestine and Israel make peace, and all of a sudden like the wall comes down, and Jews and Palestinians are living arm by arm in happiness. I don't see any other scenario than that makes Trump look good.
Well, no question. But I will say this, that Trump gets a lot of heat for being very pro-Zionist amongst certain elements of the dissident right wing. But I don't know, when was the last president that wasn't selling arms to Israel and so on and so forth, basically guaranteeing its safety?
Money is money. I mean, it's at the end of the day, there's certain pressures that are to some extent greater than the presidency, and if a person doesn't have lots of background, say like you don't have international connections, so if all of a sudden you enter Congress and the Senate or the White House, and you don't have an international network of people or intelligence, which President Trump probably did more than President Obama, having went to Harvard. You have to fall in with one of these already networks of connections, and the banking, the military, arms sales, corporate business, all of these different things are already in play. They could donate huge amounts or influence elections. It's extremely unlikely that anyone will be able to overthrow these greater forces. I mean, what's up with John David Ebert? Is he coming? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know. It's half an hour. I sent a link again at 2:00. I said, you come in at 2:05. I said, John at 2:11. I sent him an email at 2:20. And then he just said, oh, sorry, Michael and I are trying to figure this out. I'm like, just click the link, So hopefully he's going to be here soon.
Yeah, Hangouts is one of the easiest things to use. I mean, unless they're like Apple users or they're using like
supposedly Michael, his camera doesn't work. I was like, well, does his microphone work? I mean, I don't really need to see him. I don't think
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, we've had these streams, and I've been doing with Church of Entropy, and she's been bringing on new people, and like we did those streams on like stream etiquette. We walk through like the technology.
I know.
Hangouts is ending at the end of the month. I think a lot of like Luke Ford is boomer tech basically, but I think
he's actually moved on. He finally was forced to it's kind of one of these things. People feel incapable until their back's against the wall, and then they make it work.
So I mean, Luke Ford, obviously, he knows he streams every night, and he's been on that. and he's almost got it up and running. I mean, he's still got some optics type things, or having some, no sound, and I guess his viewership is kind of used to his boomer tech, but hopefully he'll survive. Like, I'm pretty confident in my computer ability that I'll be able to download it and figure it out. But I think a lot of these people are going to need help. And I had a debate with James or something like that. And it's interesting, like OV, despite our disagreements, we were able to just talk pure tech. Like, how do you get this to work? And like James or something, he wasn't able to, to be like, let's talk pure tech and just how are we going to get the streams to work. And it's unfortunate, saying like me and you, that's why they pay us the big bucks, so to say. Because
yeah, well, hey, I want to welcome John David Ebert. Thank you. Did he just leave?
No, he's oh
my God, he can't. John, come back. John,
it's all right. I mean, I don't mind walking him through the tech in it, but it's like I've done tech and computer, social media, financial stuff. I got Forex Shark in the chat here. So I've taught countless people how to use countless internet things, from teaching people how to buy airplane tickets online to real estate, Property Shark, to using stockbroker services, to social media, to all this stuff. So hopefully he'll figure it out, and whatever we could do to help him.
like you said, he came and then he left right as I introduced him. Oliver D says Forex is stupid. Is Forex? What's the deal with Forex? Why does the audience not like Forex?
Well, we got Forex Shark here. That actually his channel got, God forbid, taken down. Which he had a very popular, like 35,000 subscribers, doing stock, like Forex picks, and he beats the market about 90% of the time and has a system. And he was actually almost offered a show on Heel Turn or different things. He's got his own Discord, but certainly, I mean, I think Epstein's was caught up in currency trading. I'm not sure if he made money or lost money. It is extremely risky. The majority of people who try trading Forex lose money, although you do have people like Forex Shark in the chat who consistently make money. And, thank God, he's younger than me, probably younger than you, and is sitting on a big bank account. I don't know if you ever tried trading Forex or to put the thought into it, but I'm sure you've met people. I mean, there is a phenomenon of people that basically beat the market consistently. They have a system, and all systems have to be updated and changes, like the law of perfect markets. It basically necessitates.
He's like, oh, I thought we were 2 p.m. Mountain Time. It's like, go back and read our conversation where it says 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's not even EST, it's EDT, daylight. So in case we haven't our freaking clocks forward.
Oh God! Well, is he coming?
Is he still coming? Well, are you ready? We don't need the preface. Well, are you ready? God, I like. When this is done, if this doesn't work out, I'll tell you what I heard about is he has a Facebook exchange. I'll try to find that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd like to have positive energy, and
yeah, we can do positive energy.
And unfortunately, the main reason that people can't, it's usually ego and bad character, why people can't get good with tech. So you have a guy like me who's nice and calm and could explain something again and again, and like people yelling at computers or trying to like, well, why doesn't and just saying like, programming is programming, you have to do it a certain way. And so if you listen to a guy like Doooovid who just says like, do this, then do that, then do that, and it's going to work. And they want to. That's the way tech works. Like, I know you're a tech guy also. That's why you're probably a good portion of your streaming success is your ease with technology.
Yeah. No, we're high character guys.
Which is funny. That's part of his thesis of his book is the change in technology. But I've been doing my streams on artificial intelligence and chess and the chess computers. So now, obviously, the chess computers are significantly better than the world champion. You could download a program for your phone that would easily beat the world champion. So I see, like, the computer has more information. The information asymmetry favors the computer, and it's basically that learn to code meme. As well as you know how to program, to some extent will be as good as your life will get. Obviously, people skills and health and physicality are important, but learning to code, being good with the technology is a huge issue. And thank God my parents, professionals, doctors and lawyer, could pay technicians large sums of money to do their stereos, TVs, computers. But your average person can't afford to pay someone $50, $100 an hour every time they mess up their chords. And it's unfortunate. Or maybe it's fortunate. It's fortunate for guys like me and you, because that's why we get paid the big bucks.
Right. Well, in any case, before we were distracted by John David Ebert teasing us with an appearance, just on this point about war in Iran, Trump is surrounded by many people in his administration, within the permanent bureaucracy, within the empire, that would like to start conflicts with North Korea, Iran, and so forth. And yes, he's done lots of saber rattling, lots of threats, economic sanctions. But the fact is we have not gotten a hot war yet. Now, the game is not over. The clock has not run out. We will see what happens in the end. But is it possible that Trump not getting us into war is a accomplishment in and of itself, given all the pressure that he faces?
It's not enough for it to tip the scales in his balance, because the likelihood of any news thing is going to be bad, and anything bad that happens is going to be bad for Trump. And saying what good could happen besides for miraculously everybody loving each other in peace and breaking out and saying we all want to live together in happy and harmony because of the awesomeness of President Trump. And I'd say the chance of that happening is basically zero. So, the assumption is any news in the Middle East is going to be bad for Trump.
Interesting. So,
what possible thing could happen that would make him look good? And even if something came up and he had an astounding military victory where he strategically just bombed a few people and didn't need to send in troops and took out the bad guy. God forbid, even if somehow Trump was able to take down Assad without troops on the ground, and Assad is gone, and then a new Syrian government forms, and the Syrian people all gather around and say, "Thank you, Trump, for doing this." What's the chance that that's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. He does seem, he's got he faces a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of negative forces. A lot of negatives counting against him. But hopefully, I got to say, for me personally, I support Donald Trump over the cast of characters that the Democrats are putting forward. I know it's trendy. It used to be trendy, the Yang Gang stuff. Vote for Tulsi because, she's against foreign wars. But, Trump talked about not, engaging in foreign wars, and people seem to be unhappy with his foreign policy. Also, Tulsi Gabbard is, a complete degenerate when it comes to progressive social policies. So, I don't understand it. Did you ever notice that there are elements of the alt-right or the dissident right where Jew hate seems to trump supporting their own people? For you, would you consider yourself more pro-Jew or more anti-white?
I'm not. I wouldn't classify myself as either. I'm a Jew. I practice the Jewish religion, but I don't think I wouldn't classify myself. God forbid, I'm not anti-white. I'm not anti-anybody, and I don't think being pro-Jewish factors into my politics.
Let me change the question. Do you think it is? What do you think about? You must notice that there are sort of two types within the dissident right. There's almost the pro-whites, and then there's the anti-Jews, right? Where depending on what the priority is, someone No White Guilt rarely talks about Jews and is always talking about positive things for whites. You may not agree with him, but he has that that tone to his message. Whereas somebody like Handsome Truth or Adam Green or the Wignats, it's like Jew obsession. Even Eric,
Look, I think
I would say.
the biggest issue is probably that guy. No White Guilt was probably born into it, as opposed to those guys are born again. And so the people who are born into these type movements have a more, they're more used to how to express it, or just hating on other people. Isn't benefiting. They want to spread their ideas as opposed to take down other people. Or they might have kind of like, of course, they recognize that basically the majority of society disagrees with them, as opposed to like your born again people who say, like, just like I was woke up, the masses could be woke up also. And going back to maybe a scenario, like I forget the election where David Duke ran for president the same year I think Buchanan did, and maybe it was Bush Senior that Buchanan ran against. And so part of Duke's message gets put into Buchanan's platform, and then part of Buchanan's platform gets put into Bush Senior's platform. And likely that will happen on the Democratic side this election. So, if Gang, Gabbard, these different people, even if they don't make it that far, things like reparation, possibly universal basic income, probably not, but increase of the welfare state, that they'll be forced into the platform. So whoever does win the Democratic nominee will be forced to accept a majority of these things into their platform.
Yeah. Do you think America, or do you think that anti-Semitism is more acceptable than pro-whiteness in the general public?
No, I mean, God forbid people want to have a good life and get ahead, and only when the forgotten man, when the system's rigged, when you can't get ahead, there could be that nature to be like, well, my life is going to suck, and there's nothing I could do to improve it. So let me, at least, God forbid, extract revenge against, so to say, those who harmed me or my enemies. And Bernie Sanders, 50% of people approaching retirement have no savings. The college debt, all these different factors that make it people feel that they have no future in America. There's nothing beneficial that's going to come to their ability to get ahead in America, that will cause them to do self-destructive things. Because saying, if you could have a good life and get ahead, how much does it matter to you whether you extract revenge on those who wronged you, or people who have taken advantage of the system and have ill-gotten gains, as opposed to when you have nothing to lose, and the only benefit that people could see for themselves is at least extracting revenge on those that possibly wronged them or extracted ill-gotten gain from the system.
Yeah. Plasma John Doe says, Brundlefly, why do you lie and say anti-Semite when you know we hate Jewish supremacy and the inversion of their lying? I don't know, dude, because it's a common term. I'm not really thinking about it that much.
Did you watch the debate yesterday with that alt-right IDF rabbi and Stryker?
Yeah, I did. What did you think about that? I heard they were clamoring for you in the chat. I mean, I was doing my part to try to get you on there, but
it was somewhat of a rehash between Analytical Chick and Big Cat Kayla, where he's basically saying you'll get on board with the Zionist, or you're saying like or Halsey or Luke Ford, where he's willing to say like, I agree with you that God forbid the majority of the Jewish people are wrong and they're doing bad things for society, but there's this woke element and the Zionist, and if only the alt-right gets on board with Zionism, everything's going to work out. And so I think that's largely a failed message. I mean, one thing, the failure, the guy's like, okay, he's supposedly preaching Zionism and that Jews, God forbid, don't belong in America, but should return to Israel. Although it appears that he's done the opposite. He was born in Israel and is moving to America. And it's somewhat like, yeah, they're here to replace Doooovid. The Doooovid, the half-Jew that isn't so enthused about Zionism. So they're here to replace me with 100% Jew from Israel that's a gung-ho Zionist.
Well, I gotta say, David, it's interesting because Mephistopheles Ghost, as he says in the chat, the Jew actually argued in good faith. A lot of people felt like this Judas guy was they liked him. You know what I mean? They felt like it was an honest conversation. Now, a lot of people like you too. I think a lot
So
of
it's like
people, if you're honest, did you feel like this guy, like this did real recognize real when you watched him? Or did you feel, because it sounds like you're like, man, they're replacing Michelin Doooovid with full blood Judas.
Yeah, and saying I'm in direct conflict with both of those people. So him and Stryker are more in alignment because you're like, I'm supporting leftist, liberal Jewish policies in America of multiculturalism, as when people claim to love Babs, for example, and they thought Babs agreed with repatriation. He's like, well, Babs agrees that, God forbid, the Jews don't really belong in America and should return to Israel, as where, Doooovid is saying that the Jews are good for America. We do belong here. So him and Stryker could agree on the majority of that issue where God forbid, they have an alliance where they're both in agreement that Jews don't belong in the West and should go back to Israel, except Stryker's not so sure about whether, people like you should support Israel. You should just support, God forbid, the Jews leaving, but should you actually support the state of Israel over Palestine? So it was these minor issues that they kept on going back and forth over, as opposed to, me and Stryker had a full disagreement where I'm arguing, yes, Jews are good for America. The immigration, leftist policy, God forbid, even like the homosexual stuff, looking out for the weak, in these different elements across the board. And so, it's another big cat Caleb versus analytical chick where we're just like, well, I agree with you on everything except, don't you think the Jews are kind of special and you should make a special exception for us?
So you see this like this alt-right rabbi 2.0 as like just a cuck to Stryker.
No, I mean, he's different than like Halsey or analytical chick because he's actually an IDF rabbi.
Right.
So I mean, it's one thing.
Analytical. I mean, who do you think right now holds the title as like the alt-right rabbi? I mean, do you still see yourself as the king of this scene, or do you think this guy has a chance to like trump you as like the premier Jew that argues with the as you call them, the online Nazis?
Well, I haven't been doing too much of that. I'm happy to let him have that role. I don't mind.
You just did Adam Green. You just did Adam Green. I mean,
but Adam Green was more theological.
David Duke is so hard to get a hold of, but I mean, David Duke is on the menu.
Yeah, I mean, two things. I mean, if it's in terms of scholarship or in terms of, you're like, okay, one thing, I have a YouTube platform. I have over 100,000 views. I've been around for over 10 years. Like I showed you that, hopefully Jake Turks, he's got an invitation to stay by my house. I know multiple people who know President Trump. This is some guy who, God forbid, served in Gaza. So, I mean, he does have the credibility. He's IDF. He lived in Gaza. He's Israeli. But I don't know if he's, it depends who you're arguing with. So it's like Babs or something like that, who, Babs is probably, he might be directly connected to Epstein, or certainly he's, connected to tens, maybe hundreds of people that were directly connected to Epstein. So at that level, do you just want to argue with every low-ranking IDF rabbi? So I'm not saying he's not real, but
I know you've been around. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, this guy's like a whippersnapper. Sounds just like Aaron Amahud.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically another Aaron Amahud, and I mean, he might stick around. He might keep on doing it. I don't know. I don't mind.
Do you want to set up? Do you want to talk to him?
I wouldn't mind talking to him, but I'm not sure. Internal Jewish debates, internal Jewish blood sports. If it
doesn't have to be blood sports. I don't think he seems like an agreeable character. I'm not sure how bloody it would get. Yeah,
I would talk with him. Because generally I'm pretty agreeable, and I'm big picture. I think you could have win-win solutions for everybody. It was a good conversation. It dragged on and on. Like, they could have ended it 2 hours earlier than it did, and I'm not really trying to get in on the alt-right, so to say. I'm more in the JF original libertarian branch of the alt-right. I'm still in the libertarian branch of the alt-right.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to claim that white nationalists and Zionists should team up. I'm pushing more towards a form of balkanization, a form of return to states' rights, and libertarianism. So, my place in the alt-right, I think, possibly will have a return with the elections. I mean, basically, no one was really that interested in the, like JF. Me and JF have been able to develop a friendship in rapport and streaming, largely based on our common libertarian beliefs, although he might think libertarian is more endemic to the European man. But I doubt that this, Judas Maccabee is libertarian, and he's going to be preaching ideas that won't be in correspondence to Doowoodism.
Well,
but yeah, sure. If you could book him, like I'll.
Oh yeah, well, I'm going to work on that. I think I know. He has a channel, a small channel, and any of you listening, I know John Harris. Give me the link to his thing. You sent it to me, but I lost it. Anyway, do we want
almost anybody? I mean, the guy was claiming, basically, the people I've streamed with are the people that have reached out to me, or that people that listen to me have reached out on my behalf.
Right, this guy's like begging to get on with Stryker.
Very few people have I directly reached out to. I reached out to Veronica Kuzniar because she had scholarship on World War II that was interesting to me. I reached out to Church of Entropy because interest in the science of reincarnation. But basically everyone else was people that reached out to me, or just through common circles. So I mean, basically I'll talk to anyone who's interested in talking to me, but it's extremely unlikely. In my Discord now, there's possible maybe to have me speak with Ryan Dawson or
excellent
brother.
That would be a good one.
But I'm not going to reach out to these people on my own. So people who listen to the show and want to make it
let your goy middleman make the deal.
Well, whoever can make it happen. If they if they reach out to the person, they say do it, I'll probably do it. It's just like Jay Dyer. If I had kept on him, like maybe we would have talked. But once you stop doing it, and you're right, when he had said yes, he had problems where he got demonetized on his channel and lost a bunch of his content. And then I never reached out to him again, and it kind of fell by the way. Maybe he would still do it, but it's not my style to self-promote like that.
Yeah.
And just like Ebert, like I read Ebert's book. He's interesting. I hope he makes it on. It would be an interesting conversation, although it's unlikely. It's just not my style to just like randomly.
Yeah, he actually reached out to me, asked if I would interview him, sent me a copy of his book. We were supposed to do it earlier this week, as you know, and then he canceled on us, or rescheduled, and now again he's unpredictable.
You can't tell if he's coming on or if he just has tech issues. Or
I asked him, I was like,
does he know we're streaming and waiting for him?
And I was like, well, are you ready now? And
does he know there's 40 people waiting for him?
No, I mean, these people, yeah, these are.
He knows that there's 40 people right now waiting for him.
Yeah, last interview got like 60 views total. I mean, whatever, man. I mean, look, my understanding is, he's coping with some loss in his life, and he may not. I think we should give him some understanding that, he might be just a little discombobulated right now. So,
I watched his interview with Murphy, and I think, maybe it doesn't even pay to repeat, but he said it live on the other channel that possibly, someone close to him committed suicide or something like that.
Yeah, Mary Church, his like girlfriend, or she's an artist. He did like a whole bunch on her. So, it may just be that he's not at the top of his game, understandably. So, anyway,
I generally like to be professional and keep my word.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm not going to hold it against him. So I don't know if you assume he's not going to come. If you want to kind of just turn this into a BrundleCast and invite like Jonathan Pohl or whoever else, even the Forex Shark if he wants to come on, or if you think he's going to show.
I think if you want to put the link in the chat or do whatever, I told you I was actually going to have to bow out of this. This is why it's on your channel, because I got some work I need to get done, and
so I'll let you bail, I guess, and
bridge the gap. Speaking of which, while you're posting a link and sending a link out, there's a story here. Let me is this safe to screen share? Let's screen share here. Screen share. Can you present me to everybody real quick? So this is kind of interesting. Military eyes 16-year-olds as ranks and candidates dwindle. The best way to fix the U.S. Armed Forces recruiting challenge may involve dipping further into the nation's high schools. As the Army, Navy, and other services contend with a thriving economy and a directive to expand their ranks, there's a growing debate over whether the military should consider lowering the minimum enlistment age from 17 to 16. More than a dozen countries, including the UK, already have adopted the policy. Isn't it strange that, would we consider that like a child soldier for propaganda purposes if that was in Africa? I mean, 16 years old for the military? I mean, like, just get your driver's license and, like, here's a M16, go get hit by an IED. Kind of incredible.
Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of mandatory military service. Part of the love affair with Israel is the concept that America should, like extreme nationalism should have some sort of forced national service. And if they were going to go down that route, possibly lowering the age for military service. But, I mean, my libertarian belief system would, I guess I don't mind, like if they wanted to lower the age and people that really want to go into the military would be able to start earlier, or they opened up certain military schools like charter schools where like the ROTC and people could go to high school, with programs that would basically direct people to the military. I don't mind that. Although I do fear that, maybe fear is probably not the right word, that Trump and some of the Republicans do in fact want to institute some sort of mandatory national service, and I would be definitely against that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complex because this is not this isn't a situation like the IDF where there's sort of a national required conscription. It's a mercenary army, and given that instead of like, I don't know, raising the pay of soldiers, like we're just going to hire 16-year-olds. I mean, are they not finished with high school yet? Like, what exactly? We don't even need these troops, to be honest. Like, what do we need them for? To police empire? Like, we got to station troops in Germany for something? Anyway. So what's up? The last thing I wanted to talk to you before I left, your streams with Church of Entropy. It really disappoints me to see her set up these scenarios where she is lucky to have someone of your quality on her program, and then she brings on trolls like Will the Power and Gandalf the White, who are just nasty people to troll you.
Well, I mean, part of it is just opening the show up to anybody. So, if I've been doing it almost 4 months now with the Church of Entropy, our week in review, it's been relatively pretty successful, decent numbers, viewership. In terms of our common areas of agreement, I think the show is growing. This new concept of having debates looks like it's going to start happening with Claire. Her show actually seems to be growing pretty much too. Claire had you were on it. She's been having like over 30 viewers, although God forbid she might face a ban hammer. I think she's had problems multiple times in the past, but I think we might be able to move into more intellectual debates on topic like free will, personal versus impersonal, God, and further topics on consciousness from her perspective. What she's trying to do for herself, and increase. She's trying to create a movement or groom young men for whatever reason she's trying to do that for. It might hamper the stream.
There's something about these women, both of those women. with essentially, they're seeking to groom men. I mean, when I see what's interesting about the dynamic between
you do like the week in review concept, though.
I do like the interview concept. I always like listening to your content, Doovid. I just find it
just being able to bring people on and say, like, kind of like how Luke Ford does it. Like, well, what
I know,
streams are you doing? What books are you reading? What's interesting to you? What do you plan on doing in the future? And no one really in our circles is doing that. And so it's ended up that, me and Church of Entropy have created a little bit of rapport and have been doing it for almost 4 months now. And
right. But I just
we're going to keep on doing it for the, foreseeable future.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. I think the dynamic is interesting because the orbiters that she brings on to sort of harass you, it's like everybody, and they all kind of hate each other too. Like there's all these guys, and I don't think you're part of this, who are just sort of like trying to tear each other down in order to, gain her attention. And she just really enjoys it.
Well, that's her audience. I mean, part of it, the weekend reviews on her channel. And so, she doesn't put the link in the chat, but if she gives, the people who want to come on, she's basically been willing to let me bring on whoever I wanted to. And I haven't had that many people. 4X Shark I brought on, Halsey I brought on, but Halsey more wanted to talk to her. But I think 4X Shark more just wanted to talk about Bitcoin and these different things, or maybe also wanted to talk with her. But she has a bunch of people that want to get on. Obviously, I think our week in review is the more popular stream on her channel. So those people have their dilemma, like No Apologies, came on and it's a sign of the greater politics in the world. It's hard to get along with people, even just to advance ideas and, saying like, God forbid, I don't like this person. I don't want to work together with this person, even if that's what's necessary to advance ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a hater in the audience. He says, or this is your Manrik Gutum, probably some pagan LARPer. Brundle is a snake, attacks people like Fox Day, but fellowships with goblins like Doovid. Well, dude, here's the thing. Fox Day is
I don't really attack anybody. I've had minor scuffles with people like in the last few weeks with like No Apologies, and even that, like I tried to de-escalate that immediately. But no, I would recommend avoiding conflict with anybody and not to have long-term conflict. That's your style. But no, I don't even want, it's a BrundleCast on my channel, but like, no, I'm not interested in you carrying your conflicts or long-term conflicts onto my channel.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't think Doovid's a goblin. Doovid's a good guy. Doovid has been a friend, a pal. He's been good to many people in these circles.
We share harsh words occasionally because we're talking about very controversial issues, and a lot of these issues we're on exact opposite sides. But that's, God forbid, that's the nature of, we live geographically in different places and have different ways of life. And it's the nature of the current climate of politics that it's almost impossible to have good faith conversations on these controversial issues.
Yeah, and Oliver D., speaking of stream dynamics, Oliver D. brings up this, you mentioned that Claire has 30 people watching, right? And he's sort of poo-pooing that. It's like, what is that supposed to be an accomplishment? And I got to say, I think you'll agree with this. It is very hard to get an audience. How long did you toil in the single digits, and then to get to like 20 some was great, and then you dip back down to a dozen, and then you have Handsome Truth, and we get you get to triple digits, and now we've been at 40 some this today, and
if we didn't have Ebert in the title, it'd probably be half of this.
Right, but we're it's sort of like there's ups and downs, but there's this long-term trend, and everybody has to start on the ground floor. I was lucky. My first stream, I probably started around 30, but and I've peaked. I think the most I ever had was 400 something when I had Spencer on the first time, and I do regularly tip triple digits, but there's a lot of times where it's like, man, it's 70, 80 people. And yeah, that's nothing compared, that's an order of magnitude less than somebody like JF or, much bigger shows.
Yeah, he's been at this for years. I was giving an estimate that you could take about 25% of the fan base with you. So, if you were the co-host with Luke Ford and you start your own stream, that you could take about 25% of those viewers with you. If I'm the co-host on your show, I could take about 25% of the viewers with you. And maybe that's more like a Hannity Combs type thing where most of the people viewing, just want to disagree with me. So even in the case with me versus you, I might only be able to take 10% of the viewership with you. I heard this Iranian chess champion, a young kid who was like world junior champion. He was saying he needs more haters because all of his haters have became his fans. And to some extent, basically all of my viewers largely started out as my haters because I built up my audience by appearing on shows where I argued the side that wasn't popular on the show. So and me and you talked and planned and thought this out, and discussed the dynamics, and I got books on it, and like the post stream. So I was able to, if I didn't do a post stream from No More News, like the Ask the Rabbi #7, I got about 250 more subscribers. I probably would have only got 50 subscribers if I hadn't done the post show, and like with JF, where I had less than 10 viewers. Like I had over 10 viewers, maybe once or twice on my stream. I was getting like 1 to 5 viewers, and even that was when I was streaming with you. And then after JF, I did the post show, and I had like 40 viewers that because I streamed right after the JF show, and 5-10% of his audience were like, okay, I'll check out this Doooovid guy, and I brought on people. So not only did I do the post show, I was willing to just take the risk, put the Hangout link in the chat. So I got like Dave Martell and Verbo Tempastos and some relatively big micro streamers, and I was willing to put other micro streamers like Ekilux and even Norvin and Melky and all these various people. It is extremely difficult to build a base. The week in review is important. You have to be able to work together with your fellow micro streamers.
Yeah.
And
no, it's absolutely true. And the thing is, it's hard to sort of get any kind of momentum. And then once you get like that little community, the fact that there are 40 people watching now, you start to get to a place where there's people in your audience that like you and go out in other places and bring people and find you information and give you content. And it starts to build on itself if you regularly do it. It's interesting though. I mean, I see this chat. I mean, there's probably 40-50% of the people in this chat room I don't even recognize, that you've went and collected outside of our work together. And I think it's absolutely great. But look, I got to rock and roll. I'm sorry that John has crapped the bed today with this.
Should I give up on him, or you think that he's planning on coming on at 4 o'clock?
I mean, I think if you bridge the gap to 4 o'clock, he may show up.
Now, I could end the stream, and I was going to go down to the chess club, the Detroit Institute of Arts. I could conceivably, I don't have to do that. So I could do two things. I could end this stream and just, make it a BrundleCast and schedule a new stream for 4 o'clock, or I could ramble on. But you say you don't even know if
that's your choice. If you want to cut it, you just have to give me a new Hangout link so I can send it to him.
But what's the chance that he's showing up at 4 o'clock and it was just a mountain time issue?
I mean, if here, I'll message him real quick. So will you be there in 45 minutes? Let's see what he says.
I could salvage my day and just, call this a BrundleCast and apologize that he didn't show and go do my regular activity. Or if he's definitely going to show up, I could change my schedule around and reschedule this for 4, but I don't want to mess up my schedule if he's not going to show.
No, I hear that. I think, to be honest, I kind of think we just, I think you end the show. I don't think you just keep it going to wait for him. If he gets back to me and he's coming at 4, I'll send you a message. You send me a Hangout link and you redo it.
Okay, yeah, I know he's supposed to be on JF. Like I read his book, and we could even do it next week. And
yeah, we'll make it happen. I just, It's disappointing, man. It's like that time we had Patrick Little on, and he just, he
I
was
haven't
an
made
hour
these
late and
flowers.
rolled out of bed right onto our program. Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Did you grow those?
Those came from my garden. Like I was going to take him to the museum for the chess club. I mean, Patrick Little was. I mean, okay, I give Ebert the benefit of the doubt, and maybe he's got difficult things happening in his life, or there was an issue. Like Patrick Little was more expected. Like, is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? But yeah, that was a pain. Like the multiple shows, and I readjusted my schedule multiple times. Although finally we did get him. Yeah, I think I would expect Ebert to be more professional than Little, although try to give him the benefit of the doubt. He might be having issues, or could have honestly been a time zone issue. And it's saying if he messages you and tells you it's honestly a time zone issue, and 100% he's going to be able to do it at 4, I'll stick around and we could do it at 4.
Yeah. Your call, man. But I got to rock and roll. But
Okay.
Thank you for hosting this. It was a good conversation. It's always great to talk to you, Doovid.
Okay, yeah, thanks for coming on. And you could message me on Twitter. I might monologue a few minutes and see if any of the regulars, if any, because it's called the BrundleCast, if any of your regulars want to come on. I think Melky is, said he no longer, even Ash or any of these people, if they want to talk with me, or their relation with me is strictly through your show.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later. See ya.
Okay, so thanks, Brundle, for trying to organize this and for doing it on my channel. They got pretty big viewership. Probably a lot of people, or almost everyone tuning in, was looking forward to a conversation with Mr. Ebert. I'm looking forward to it. I read his book twice. Hypermodernity is interesting to me. Told him I'm a player of the hypermodern chess variations. Let me see if anyone on the chat that like a regular from the BrundleCast wants to come on, or otherwise I'm just gonna end it, and I'll wait for Brundle to get back. I'll wait around for like 20 minutes, and if Ebert messages back, I'll do the show. Otherwise, I'm going to do my regular chess activity. So it looks like I'm just going to end the stream. I'm going to rename this one just BrundleCast, and take the Hypermodernity with John David Ebert and Michael Aaron Kamens out of the title. I apologize to anybody who tuned in specifically waiting to hear him. Brundle completely arranged it. I was not in contact with Ebert myself. Brundle was in contact with him. And, so it could honestly be a scheduling error. It could be personal things going on with his life. So I'll try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I have read his book twice, so it's likely that if he does want to talk, that we will reschedule it. And I have more streams that I want to do. I'm going to try to do next week my Ask the Rabbi number 8 on the conversion to Judaism. I did a lot of research to that, and I have to narrow it down. So I'll enter screen share here for a second. And I wanted to clear this off my desk, but you could see all these articles that I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Over 30 articles on conversion to Judaism. It's an extremely complicated topic, and even all these articles, I won't be able to cover it conclusively. And yes, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go with what I have with the research I prepared, and probably do that stream this week. And if people come on and they want to talk about, conversion to Judaism, or it'll be an Ask the Rabbi. So, people who want to ask me issues about Judaism, although like I don't want to like Ask the Rabbi number 7. I don't want to do like constantly, God forbid. I mean, I'm willing to answer questions, but just people like attacking Judaism or asking egregious or borderline outrageous questions. I'm going to keep it more to the topic of conversion to Judaism. I know Church of Entropy has a debate scheduled. Let me check her channel. Between Zachary Miller and Will DePower on the 20th. So that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Zachary Miller and Will to Power will be debating free will. And then next week will be personal to impersonal debate. And so probably I will schedule. Okay, so Brundle said he's coming. I'm going to end the show now and schedule a new one for 4. And so I'm going to sign off, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Let me just finish what I was saying. So Church of Entropy is going to be doing a debate tomorrow night with Will to Power and this attorney, Zachary Miller, who actually went to law school with a good friend of mine from Brooklyn who went down to Florida for law school. And that should be interesting. If there's an after show, we'll do the week in review. I have another Indian festival coming up. I might try to stream these Monday night Arena Kings. I've been doing pretty good. I get to play top-rated players, so I might have a regular Monday night chess stream. And then I have quite a few public study sessions. Like I have a bunch of stuff on Edenics, and I'm not sure if I've shown this. So let me enter a screen share. I think I've shown this a few times. But the kind of like the origins of Hebrew language and linguistics and possible theories of Hebrew being the origin of all languages. So that should be an interesting stream. I was thinking of going ahead and trying my Albert Pike Freemasonry, Scottish Rite Freemasonry. That would be a whole series of possibly 34 videos. Like I would do an introduction to Freemasonry, and I might do, I don't know if I do a whole stream on every degree of Scottish Rite Masonry, but a whole series on Freemasonry. And so that would require quite a bit of research and work. Obviously, you can see behind me my books on Freemasonry. So, like Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma would probably be the book I would be reviewing. But I have all types of, like Scottish Rite, Eastern Star, Duncan, Knight Templarism, secret societies, the building societies, the history of, British royalty. So I would like to do a whole series on Freemasonry. I have quite a bit of literature on it. I also have my esoteric work up there. I got the Secret Teaching of All Ages, Manny P. Hull, Mason, some conspiracy literature, Madame Blavatsky, Gurdjieff, and that might be in line with what Ebert's going to talk about. Because I think Freemasonry is probably the best system to coordinate these things put into a large system. So that's a stream that I look forward to doing. The Democratic primaries, certainly if I get up to 1,000 subs and I could live stream, it'll be pretty likely I'm going to go and hang outside of the Democratic primaries. The second night has Tulsi Gabbard and Yang, and so it's more likely I'll do the second night. If I have 1,000 subs, I'll probably do both nights. If I don't, and since I'll be able to live stream, if I don't have 1,000 subs by then, I will probably just do the second night, and maybe Jake Turks. People know. Enter a screen share again. I'm sure everyone knows Jake Turks. So last time I saw him, we actually went to the same school, Bubov, and we weren't there together. He's younger than me, but the famous Jake Turks. In fact, Jake Turks, asked President Trump a question just yesterday about the squad, and so he will likely be covering. See, like a set of Talmud was given to interesting Jewish news. He's likely coming to Michigan for the Democratic primaries. I messaged him. He said as of now he plans on coming to Detroit. So I offered him a ride, or even to let him stay at my house if he wants. So if he would be willing to stream with me, that would be great. Hopefully I'll get Jake Turks right here in studio, and we'll have a conversation right here in my house. And if not, I'll be, hopefully standing outside, and maybe he could even get me into the Democratic primaries to, so if you don't sub to my channel, please consider subbing to my channel. And that way I'll be able to have the 1,000 subs and be able to live stream. And then, maybe I'll be able to be at the Democratic primaries, certainly standing outside, interviewing people, and I'll be able to ask your questions live to people standing outside, and possibly if Jake Turks comes through and decides to, hook up his fellow hosted Doovid, maybe there'll be more venues to actually, get in and meet some of the candidates. So I'm not sure if Brundle's saying Peyton. I guess because I'm just sitting around. I'm going to schedule this event, so I'm going to risk putting the link directly in the chat, and hopefully I don't get too many trolls. I'm trying to be a good-hearted guy and stay away from conflict and have honest conversations. I don't really troll anybody. People I disagree with, like, you don't see me appearing in their chats and trolling them. So I did put the link in the chat. If anyone wants to come on, I'll keep on talking while I set up this new event. So, yep, there's the link. Anyone who's a streamer, that's it. So it looks like Ebert's going to show up at 4. So if someone comes on, I'm going to set up the stream right now for Ebert at 4 o'clock. And if someone wants to come on, I'll talk a few more minutes while I'm doing that. Peyton's eating right now, so he's not going to be able to come on. Okay, so I'm going to set up the stream while I'm talking. I'll give a minute to see if anyone comes on, and otherwise, I'm just going through my YouTube right now. If anyone knows, I'll screen share this just in case people. I've tried to teach, like I do a tutorial. Hopefully, someone like JF will do a tutorial, but if no one does, I'll do a tutorial on like OBS. I'm going to try to download OBS software. So I go to the old school. They're changing it, so you have to go to the old Studio Creator in order to live stream, and that's no longer going to be able to be done anymore. Some events. I'm going to make a new event. I'm going to keep this the exact same title, and I'm going to change the title to this one to like pre-show, and 4 o'clock. I'll give it to Brundle, and so maybe I'll eat. I got Deshaun calling me. Hello. I think I'm actually streaming now. I'm live. So if I had a scheduling issue, so it looks like I'm not going to be coming down to the museum today.
I'm sorry. I just thought you would come because I'm here hanging out. But that's all right. I'll be in touch over the week.
Okay. Take care. Shabbat shalom. Okay, so that was Deshaun. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing a stream this week. It could be we're going to push it off. We don't have a topic or proper research. So I guess no one came on. So I'm just going to end the stream, and I'm going to post the new one, give Brundle the link. So blessings, everybody. For those who celebrate Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom here in Detroit. Sabbath doesn't start for hours. So have a wonderful Sabbath, and I'll see people in 30 minutes, hopefully with John Ebert. Looking forward. Take care.